this is Glover Teixeira, UFC light heavyweight champion.
Hi, I'm Robbie Lawler.
What's up, fight family? This is your favorite MMA coach, Thiago Alves, the Pitbull.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Pedro Munoz.
This is Mike Brown.
Guys, I am Alexei Alenik, and welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And welcome.
And this is wewantpicks.
And you're watching We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks.
We want picks.
To We Want Picks.
To We Want Picks. Hi everybody from American Top Picks.
My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is Quick Picks. I am going to run through the entire UFC 270 in Gane vs. Gane fight card. I'm going to give you my picks, break down every single fight, and I'm going to try to do it in 20 minutes or less. Before I dive in, if you want $50 free, go to wewantpicks.com/bets, sign up with any one of our 5 betting partners, make a deposit, let me know after you do, and I will send you $50 as a thank you. Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, literally however you want it. Just go to wewantpicks.com/bets, sign up, make a deposit with any one of our partners. I'm going to run through this entire card. I'm going to do it quickly, but I'm going to give you every single pick and give you all of the information you need to make bets and enjoy the fights. If you want a full detailed breakdown with multiple points of views, fantasy information, and full bet breakdowns, make sure you watch our full card breakdown every Tuesday night live on YouTube. Let's jump right in. First up, at UFC 270, we have Della Maddalena versus Pete Rodriguez. Della Maddalena is 10-2 overall, 5-0 in his last 5, and he has not lost since 2016. Pete Rodriguez, 4-0 in his entire career. He's making his UFC debut. He's only got 4 professional fights, which is literally 3 times less the experience that Della Maddalena has. Maddalena is coming off a solid win on Contender Series. He doubled his opponent's strikes in that fight. He's a striker. He has an interesting style because he plots forward on his toes with a really nice step-in jab. And then if his opponent responds, he takes big steps backwards and restarts that cycle. He has deceiving power where what looks like setup punches or stiff jabs end up rocking his opponents and in some cases finishing them from there. He has solid takedown defense, but his offensive takedowns could definitely use some work. Pete Rodriguez only has 4 professional fights, and he was fighting as an amateur at 19. He's a brawling style striker. He throws heavy and has no problem staying in the pocket. Even with his lack of experience at this level, he's pretty composed. He does a solid job pushing away from tie-ups to make some space and then throw those bombs. If you go out there, you do your own research, just know that all of those tattoos on his neck, his chest, everywhere, they are new. So you dig into some older fights, he looks like a completely different human being. And listen, Pete Rodriguez, he got the call. He got the opportunity to fight in the UFC, and he took it. And I think that's an incredibly tough debut fight. He just doesn't have the experience to hang with Della. But the reality is you can't pass up these opportunities. This is definitely a striker versus striker type matchup. Pete has no problem getting into a firefight. I do think Jack's forward pressure and power will be way too much for him. Pete will throw heavy, but Jack will take those big steps back. He'll get out of harm's way. And I think Della Maddalena wins by KO, TKO, and just overwhelms the very inexperienced UFC debut. And next up, we have a rescheduled Vanessa Demopoulos versus Silvana Gómez Juárez. This was supposed to be last week, and they pushed it to this week for COVID protocols. Vanessa Demopoulos, 6-4 overall. He's 2-3 in her last 5, and she's coming off a decision loss to J.J. Aldrich in her UFC debut. Silvana Gómez Juárez is 10-3 overall. She's 3-2 in her last 5, coming off a submission loss to Loopy just a few months ago. Vanessa Demopoulos made her UFC debut a few months ago at 125 pounds on short notice against J.J. Aldrich. She now has a full camp, and she's at her natural weight class of 115 pounds. Vanessa's a good striker. She likes the pocket. She does not have any real power, but she does have volume and footwork. And if it goes to the ground, Vanessa's got solid grappling and can really make something happen down there. Silvana Gómez Juárez, similar to Vanessa, where her last fight was her UFC debut. She's also a striker, but where Vanessa likes to stay in the pocket, Silvana likes to use her reach to keep people outside of her strikes, and she does have power in her hands, and she throws heavy leg kicks. These odds have shifted the last couple of weeks, especially with the rebooking of this fight. Silvana opened as a tiny favorite, then it went even, and now Vanessa is the slight betting favorite. I tend to agree with that. I think Silvana has the raw power where Vanessa has the speed and the volume. Vanessa also has the grappling edge, but I don't see this fight getting to the ground because Vanessa doesn't have the offensive wrestling, and Silvana's not going to take any shots to get it there. So I'm going Vanessa here, but it is it's early in the year. A lot of these people getting back at it after long layoffs. So I'm just going to watch the fight. I'm just going to enjoy the fight. No bet here, but Vanessa Demopoulos is the pick. And then next up, we have Michel Pereira versus Andre Fialho. Michel Pereira has got himself a new opponent here. He was supposed to fight last week with a different opponent. A couple things have shifted around, and now he's back on a card. And Andre is taking this on short notice. Andre is 14-3. Michel Pereira is 3-2, riding a 2-fight win streak, coming off a nice win over Nico Price. Michel Pereira is a capoeira fighter. So he's got flashy kicks, spins, punches, and capoeira is that Brazilian dance fighting, which is why he's just so athletic. He takes risks, and sometimes he'll go with flashy techniques over practical, logical ones, and he'll get himself into some trouble. He's unbelievably talented, and the read in the past was always that he needs to control himself and fix his cardio to be successful, and that's exactly what he's done. He's still got a touch of crazy so he can make fun, fights exciting and give people little weird looks and stuff like that. But he does seem to have taken care of his cardio, which is now, if you look at his last 2 wins, they were both decisions. He didn't slow down. He's still a very good grappler. He's got tons of power and really good speed. Andre Fialho is a striker with a nice double jab. He's got heavy leg kicks, solid takedowns when he needs them, and he has legitimate power in his hands. But I would say his kicks are his biggest asset. He'll go out there, he'll kick your legs, he'll kick your body, he'll throw it up to your head, and he'll mix up inside and outside leg kicks to try to slow you down. His issue, though, is his defense needs work. If you go back and you watch his fight against Chris Curtis in the PFL, he was dropped multiple times, and he ate every single jab or straight right that came his way. He has no head movement whatsoever, but he does have a solid chin, which makes him pretty hard to finish. I like Michel Pereira in this fight. Short notice aside, I love Pereira's speed and athleticism. I think Andre's lack of head movement will get him into some trouble here. And the fact that unless it's his jab, he only throws one strike at a time. I like the more well-rounded, busier, and more athletic Pereira to get this done. But Andre does have very real power, and even late into the fights can be live to get something out of there. So Michel Pereira is the pick. Andre Fialho is a dangerous fighter, but he's way too hittable for this matchup. And then we have Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. This was rebooked from UFC Vegas 45 in December. Barcelos is 4-1 in his last 5, coming off a wild fight against Timur Valiev, 16-2 overall in his career. Victor Henry, 21-5 in his career, 4-1 in his last 5, and he's making his UFC debut after 26 fights, which is incredible. Raoni Barcelos is incredibly well-rounded. Last time we broke him down, he was training with Glover at his gym in Connecticut. So we had a little bit of an inside scoop because we're good friends with Glover here. And the feedback was that Raoni Barcelos is absolutely incredible and is a savage everywhere. If you break down any of his tape, it's the same story. Raoni has great low kicks, very good BJJ. He hits hard, has very good wrestling offense and defense. And if you talk about his defense, Timur Valiev went 0 for 6 in takedowns against him. And Raoni dropped him twice in that fight. Raoni Barcelos is the real deal. Victor Henry is a fun, come-forward striker with a wide variety of attacks. He likes to plot forward, use his head movement to avoid punches, and throw literally everything that he can. He sets up leg kicks with his boxing, and if he's out of range, he'll throw head kicks, but if he's inside the pocket, he'll throw elbows and knees. He has a ton of variety, and he mixes it all together really nicely. And, the odds on this fight are interesting because I agree with them. I think Raoni Barcelos is great. He has power, speed, striking, wrestling, BJJ. And Victor Henry, while he's an impressive striker, He is making his UFC debut. He's missing some of the other pieces to his game. And I think Victor will give Hani a hard time on his feet, and then Hani will just move to grappling where he will have a solid advantage. I like Barcelos to win. Victor Henry is dangerous. He's the exact type of fight that these hot prospects tend to showcase their skills in. So I'm not going to touch the money line because it's absolutely absurd. But I do like the under on rounds. I like Hani Barcelos to get this done, finish Victor Henry. But if Victor Henry has that incredible striking and put stuff together, then, I could see some craziness out of him. Either way, under on rounds is my favorite play on this fight. Next up, we have Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Kay Hansen. Jasmine is 6-1 overall. She's 4-1 her last 5, coming off a solid Contender Series win. Kay Hansen is 7-4 overall, 4-1 in her last 5, and she's coming off a really close loss to Corey McKenna. Kay Hansen is incredibly young, and she made her UFC debut at only 20 years old. She's a short, powerful grappler who likes to Mike Tyson her way into a clinch and then bully from there. And I say Mike Tyson because when she comes forward, she's got heavy bobs and weaves, and then those big, powerful punches to close that distance. And once she does close the distance, she pressures you up against the cage, drops down, grabs a leg or two, and works a takedown. And if you go back and watch some of her fights, she's picking women clean up over her head and dumping them. After she gets the takedown, she immediately starts working for submissions. Jasmine Jasudavicius is a grappler who likes to come forward and push the pace with her striking. She has a solid collar tie, underhook clinch, where she controls the body, throws heavy knees, and then works some takedowns from there. Her takedowns are a bit sloppy, but she has such fantastic hips that even if there's a scramble that's created from there, she'll end up on top. And this is a pretty fun matchup between two women who will absolutely go at it. Jasmine is the better striker and has the better hips, but Kay is more powerful, has the better takedowns, and might be more technically skilled on the ground. The issue with Kay is she will fall behind in the striking because she's not as technical. And in her loss against Corey McKenna, it was clear that she didn't have the striking advantage or the technique to win those exchanges. So she immediately went to grappling where she had some success. I think this is a close fight. I am leaning toward Jasmine here. I think she wins the striking exchanges, and I think her hips will be too good for Kay, and I think Jasmine will end up defending some takedowns, or if there is a scramble, she'll end up on top. So I'm going with the underdog, Jasmine, to win that fight. And then we have Tony Gravely versus Saimon Oliveira. Tony Gravely, 21-7 overall, 3-2 in his last 5, and he's coming off that loss to Nate Maness a few months ago. Saimon Oliveira, 18-3 overall, 5-0 in his last 5, and he has not lost since 2018. Tony's a pretty one-dimensional guy, ground and pound, but he's tough, he's effective, and he likes to come forward with volume and power. Then he wrestles hard and old school ground and pounds. He's very strong, and he uses it well for takedowns and damage. Tony's big issue is he gasses out, and he has questionable defense with the submissions. He does average almost 6 takedowns per fight, which is absolutely incredible, and there are no secrets to what Tony Gravely's game plan is in every single fight. Saimon Oliveira is a very slick BJJ fighter. He's incredibly flexible and literally dangerous from anywhere on the ground. I would compare his ground game, in MMA at least, to Charles Oliveira. They have very different builds, very similar builds, and they move the same way on the mat. He always has a wrist in his hand. He's always got his feet on the hips, and he's working for something from there. His striking does lack a bit. He throws one punch at a time. He tends to overreact to anything coming his way. So if you hit him with a jab and there's a 2 behind it, he will literally move his head completely out of the way, sometimes turn it, and that's never a good look because that will open him up for takedowns or combination strikes. I love Tony Gravely in this matchup. His striking is definitely cleaner. His wrestling will absolutely be able to get this to the ground, and his top pressure will be incredible here. The problem is that 5 of Tony Seven's losses are by submission, and 11 of Oliveira's wins are by submission. So I don't normally care about those type stats, but Tony is a grinding wrestler. That's what he is, and Saimon absolutely wants to be on the ground because that's where he's the most dangerous. So I'm still going to pick Tony Gravely to win here. I think he'll have solid pressure and smother Oliveira, similar to how, Ari Farias beat Oliveira. But Tony needs to watch out for elbows from the bottom and avoid scrambles, because Saimon will be live the entire 15 minutes to put away Tony Gravely. And I will be looking at some prop bets in regards to that. Then we have Matt Frevola versus Genaro Valdéz. Matt Frevola is 8-3-1 overall. He's 2-2-1 coming off the wrong side of Terrence McKinney's UFC debut. Genaro Valdéz is 10-0. He's 5-0 with his last 5 wins, and all of his wins being by stoppage. Matt Frevola is an incredibly tough wrestler who never stops coming forward. He does not have technical striking, but that doesn't stop him from just charging forward and throwing big looping shots or sloppy back fists. Genaro Valdéz is an incredibly well-rounded fighter. He's primarily a grappler, but he also has absolutely no issues getting into a slugfest. His striking can be wild, but boy, is it fun. He uses it really well to set up takedowns. And speaking of takedowns, he had 4 in less than 6 minutes in his Contender Series win a few months ago. This should be a fun fight. We basically have 2 grapplers who are wild on their feet, but looking for takedowns at all times. I think Matt Frevola has the better takedowns, but Genaro has better BJJ and positioning. But even though Matt has the better takedowns, he will sometimes hang out in a striking match where Genaro will not. He knows what he wants to do and where he wants to be. I like Genaro to get the takedowns and probably stop Matt Frevola in this fight. So my pick, Genaro Valdéz, and I am pretty confident in that pick. Then we have Michael Morales versus Trevin Giles. Michael Morales, 12-0 with 10 stoppages. Trevin Giles, 14-3-0. He's 3-2 coming off the loss to Duplessis in his last 5. Michael Morales is an absolute killer. He's a freestyle wrestling national champion and a Muay Thai national champion in Ecuador. He has fantastic footwork and a great jab. He is a Muay Thai national champion, but he doesn't have that traditional Muay Thai high guard stance. He has a nice loose boxing stance, which is what allows him to work in and out so well. His takedowns are clean, but there are more throws and trips than traditional takedowns. My only knock on Michael Morales is that he can be slow to engage at times and maybe fall behind. Trevin Giles is a very athletic grappler with a solid jab. He's pretty light in his feet. He does a nice job working in and out of range. He will throw a combination and then just step back completely out of range and reset. Regardless of what the stats say, his wrestling offense is not good, but his submission defense is incredible. If you go back and watch his fight against Brendan Allen in the LFA, he defended every single submission attempt you could possibly imagine and ultimately snuck out his own submission. Trevin Giles has decent striking, poor takedowns, and good grappling. I don't think that's enough here. His athleticism has gotten him through fights in the past that, ones that he shouldn't have won. I just don't think that's going to happen here. I think Morales is going to win this fight. I think he's better everywhere except the actual pace. And my only concern is that Trevin may just march forward, stay in Morales' face, which could give him a hard time. But Morales is the pick. This is a great fight to see how incredible he actually is, because Trevin Giles is a great measuring stick. Next up, we have Cody Stamann versus Said Nurmagomedov. Cody Stamann is 19-4-1, riding a 2-fight loss streak. But the most impressive thing about his record is that he was 19-1 as an amateur before he went pro. Said Nurmagomedov is 14-2 overall, 4-1 coming back after a year-long layoff. Cody Stamann is very well-rounded. He wrestled at all levels, including in college, and he started boxing at 16. He's good and technical, and he sets a nice pace, but he doesn't necessarily have the power to threaten a finish. And despite his last name, there is no relation between Said Nurmagomedov and Khabib Nurmagomedov. And that makes sense because he fights nothing like Khabib. Nurmagomedov is a flashy striker who uses his length really well, and he'll throw kicks to your head while only standing a few feet in front of you. His striking is versatile, and he has an impressive 5-2 striking differential with an even more impressive 71% takedown defense. And this should be a really fun fight. Cody's pace and almost 3 takedowns per fight average versus Said's length, speed, and striking. I think this is a close fight, regardless of what the odds say, because while Saeed will be the more technical and absolutely the more dangerous striker, Cody has no problem getting in your face and throwing before shooting takedowns. I think Cody can frustrate a ring-rusty Nurmagomedov and sneak in some takedowns. And if I'm right, and he can get those takedowns without taking too much damage on the way in, this could be a lot like Hani Barcelos versus Saeed Nurmagomedov, where Hani took a decision win. I like Cody here. Cody's the pick. It's not like a tentpole underdog pick where I'm 1,000% sure, but I do like Cody in that matchup. Then we have a battle of the middleweight grapplers. We have Rodolfo Vieira versus Wellington Turman. Rodolfo Vieira, 8-1 overall, 4-1 in his last 5 with that loss to Fluffy Hernandez because he was absolutely exhausted. Wellington Turman, 17-5 overall, 2-3 in his last 5 with a win over Sam Alvey in his last fight. Rodolfo Vieira is massive at 185. He's crazy strong, world-level jiu-jitsu. His cardio, however, is absolutely horrific, and that's what led to that loss against Fluffy Hernandez. He does have power in his hands. He has nice offensive takedowns, but do not expect him to be fresh later in the fight. Wellington Turman is a very solid grappler. His striking could use some work, but it is there, but it's mostly there to set up his grappling. He's slick on the ground. He's always looking to make something happen. His striking is not powerful, but he does have solid entries, and he uses his footwork pretty well. His last fight was a scrap against Sam Alvey. It's easy to say, well, it was a split decision over Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey's not very good, therefore Wellington's not very good. But that's not true. If you watch the fight, it was a good back-and-forth fight. Ultimately, Wellington won because of his takedowns and control, but it was a fun fight, and we saw it everywhere. Feet, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. And this is an interesting matchup. And I think this matchup comes down to striking and wrestling, because I don't think the grappling matters here. They're not going to submit each other. They're both very, very good. So who's going to win the striking exchanges? Well, I think Wellington Turman's a little more technical and Rodolfo Vieira has a little more power. Who's going to win the wrestling? That one's tricky because Rodolfo is just picking people up and slamming them because he's so jacked. Wellington Turman has way more cardio. So it's an interesting fight. I think Wellington can avoid a first round, survive a first round, very fresh Rodolfo Vieira, and then start to pick up the pace, initiate his own takedowns, and be the fresher guy rounds 2 and 3. I do like Wellington Turman here. His 22% takedown accuracy worries me, but I like Wellington Turman literally because he will be fresh. He will be, good everywhere, where Rodolfo is submission or bust sometimes. If he can't submit you, there's no way he's going to ride out a decision with that cardio, especially a guy like Wellington who's willing to exchange and willing to push that pace. And Wellington's training with Glover Teixeira, so he's getting plenty of really good, heavy grappling looks himself. Then we have Ilia Topuria versus Charles Jourdain. Ilia Topuria getting a new opponent and moving cards. He's 5-0 in his last 5, coming off the absolute destruction of Ryan Hall that made him look like a world champion kickboxer. Charles Jourdain, 12-4 overall, 3-2 in his last 5, coming off of that awesome win over Andre Ewell. And Charles is taking this on short notice, but he did fight on the last card of 2021, so just a few weeks ago. Ilia Topuria is a good wrestler. He averages a little more than 3 takedowns per fight, and he also has a positive striking differential. Striking-wise, he's technical, he's got some power, but he's definitely a grappler at heart. Charles Jourdain is a fun, come-forward striker with a great chin. He's incredibly fast, has great timing, and he is willing to take chances with spinning and flying attacks, hence the Charles Air Jourdain. He's coming off the very first decision win of his entire career, and it was an awesome fight against Andre Ewell. And if you didn't watch that fight, just watch the last 30 seconds. It'll tell you everything you need to know. The guy is just marching forward, throwing bombs, screaming. It was awesome. Ilia Topuria was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev, who's a relentless grappler. Now he's fighting Charles Jourdain, who's an exciting striker. This definitely poses its own challenge, and it's definitely a different look, but I do think Topuria was planning on a grappling-based offense, and that preparation will only help him here. Jourdain has a 48% takedown defense, and up until his last fight, he didn't have a single win in the UFC against an opponent who was able to take him down. Jourdain is absolutely a wild card, but I like Ilia to implement a grappling game plan, smother Jourdain, take him down, hold him down. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. We have Brandon Moreno versus Davison Figueiredo 3. The first fight was a draw because of a foul. The second fight, Brandon Moreno dominated. Brandon Moreno, 19-5-2 overall, 4-0-1 in his last 5. Deiveson Figueiredo, 22-1 in his career, 3-1-1 in his last 5. Brandon Moreno is great. He's very tough, has a great chin, and puts on a nonstop pace. In their first fight, he won the wrestling exchanges and the scrambles. He doesn't have the same power as Figgy, but he has the volume to overwhelm. And just like last time, he needs to push the pace and keep it dirty to exhaust Figgy and win. Deiveson Figueiredo, very well-rounded guy who's dangerous everywhere. He's very good at baiting you and playing the pocket line to convince you that he's in range when he actually isn't. His BJJ is great, and he's incredible off his back, not to mention the power in his hands. The issue, however, has been his cardio. That's what screwed him in his last fight, and we'll see if he's ready for this one. Manel Kopp did an interview with MMA Junkie a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that Figueiredo had big weight-cutting issues in his last fight, and that he was literally in the hospital leading up to that fight. His breakdown was that Figgy's power is dangerous, and Moreno feels it in the fights, but that if it gets past the third round, Moreno takes over. I mostly agree with that insight. Again, if you look at the first fight, the stats were basically even. Moreno had an extra takedown, but Figgy definitely had the more powerful, dangerous strikes. And the only reason that was a draw was because a point was taken away from Figgy. So Figgy should have won except for that point that was taken away. That's how it ended up a draw. The second fight, Figueiredo was exhausted and just didn't seem to be himself. Moreno put on a pace and beat him down. I want to go Moreno here, and I liked Moreno a few weeks ago, but the reality is I think Figueiredo's the better, more talented fighter. Moreno just has so much heart, it makes up for any skill gaps. But if you go to Deiveson Figueiredo's Instagram, that dude looks like he is in shape. And if you have Deiveson Figueiredo in shape, I don't think you can beat him. So a slight edge towards Figueiredo here. I'm liking him to win this fight literally based off of pictures and videos. And he looks like he has the cardio because the cardio is his only problem. So I'm going to watch the weigh-ins very, very closely. But I like the more talented, more dangerous Figueiredo. His cardio has been his Achilles heel, and it looks like, according to Instagram, he's taking care of that. Then we have the main event of the evening, Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane for the heavyweight championship. Francis Ngannou, 16-3 overall, 5-0 in his last 5, coming off the knockout win over Stipe Miocic to take the belt. Then we have Ciryl Gane, 10-0 in his career, coming off the destruction of Derek Lewis to win the interim title. This is a heavyweight title unification bout because technically they're both heavyweight champions. And everybody's read is this is power versus technique. This is more than that. Francis Ngannou is definitely the scariest guy in the division. He has all the power of Derek Lewis, but he also has the technique to set things up. He's got more volume, not a ton more, but he does have more volume than Derek Lewis. He only averages about 2.5 significant strikes per minute. Most people assume that if you take Francis down, you can ride him out and win there. But in the 4 fights he was actually taken down in, he won 3 of them by stoppage. And in his last fight against Stipe, not only did he defend the takedowns, but he actually reversed one for his own takedown. His power was on point. His takedown defense was on point, and he looked incredible in his last fight. Ciryl Gane is identical to Francis in stature, but a very different fighter. He does not have the same power as Francis Ngannou, but he is much more technical striker who has high volume and a well-rounded arsenal. He will kick, he will grapple, he will play the best in and out game in heavyweight history. His striking differential is impressive 5-2, which means he hits his opponents 5 times for every 2 that he gets hit. And it just speaks to how incredible his footwork is. He also uses that footwork to set up takedowns. He took down Dontel Mays 3 times in their matchup and Rosenstruck twice, which speaks to his game planning and his intelligence. Listen, Francis Ngannou is ridiculously dangerous, and he's been defending takedowns very well as of late. My initial read on this was that I liked Francis to win the fight. I liked his power. I liked him to defend the takedowns and stay dangerous. There was a lot to be made out of the sparring footage between the two, and what I saw in that sparring footage was Ciryl Gane touching Francis and Francis not caring at all. And that tells me it was a light sparring, but that tells me even in their hard sparring, Ciryl would hit Francis and it didn't hurt, and Francis did not care, which is why he would plot forward and then just walk right through that stuff. I think there's some of that here. I think Francis has no power coming forward and throwing heavy bombs because he's not worried about Ciryl. Cyryl's only path to victory here will be a decision. He's not going to stop Francis Ngannou. And the original read was Francis Ngannou was going to win this fight. I like the power. I like the takedown defense. The problem is, honestly, the contract negotiation stuff is a factor. Francis Ngannou hates the UFC right now. He doesn't think he's paid well enough. He doesn't think they promote him. It's the last fight of his contract, but if he keeps the belt, the championship clause, the champion clause in the contract stays in place, so he's not free. He's under contract, and the payment terms are already set. So if he keeps his belt, he's stuck in a contract at a value that he doesn't want to be. And he hates that, and he knows that. And literally the best thing for Francis Ngannou's future would be to lose this fight, because then he is 100% free and clear. The craziest thing that could ever happen would be Francis Ngannou beats the brakes off of Ciryl Gane and then just taps out, submits. Beats the crap out of Ciryl Gane, submits, loses the fight, technically a free agent, but we watch him beat Ciryl Gane. Obviously, that's not going to happen. That would just be incredible. So, listen, I think Francis is the better fighter. He definitely has more experience. He's the more dangerous fighter. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. But this contract negotiation stuff is very real. He's talking about boxing. He'll never be able to box as the UFC heavyweight champion. He's talking about making more money. They can negotiate in good faith, but they don't need to because he's going to be under contract if he keeps the belt. So I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane because of the contract factors. But the reality is Francis Ngannou is more dangerous, and I think Francis Ngannou is the better fighter. But the contract negotiation, that stuff is very real and is a very real factor. Guys, go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up, make a deposit. Let me know. I'll send you $50. And if you want more than one point of view and details about bets and details about fantasy plays, watch our full Tuesday night breakdowns where we go into detail on every single one of these fights. Thank you for the watch.